Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in to this event on this very special day. My name is Begum. I'm the Cork City Ambassador for Women in AI. This is going to be a recorded session which will be published on YouTube and may appear in other media outlets, so please be careful. As Women in AI Ireland, we wanted to celebrate the International Women's Day with you. Thanks to our collaborators, Microsoft DreamSpace and Confirm Center, for joining us on this very special day. Today, we are going to present you an event on the future of AI and you. First, please let me introduce you to Women in AI and our activities in Ireland. So, what is Women in AI Ireland? In September 2019, our amazing Alessandra Sala has launched the Irish chapter. She's the ambassador of Women in AI Ireland. She has worked tirelessly to grow our community. She's also with us today behind the scenes, so please feel free to connect with her through her social media channels or just simply in the chat. Thanks to her enthusiasm, it inspired all of us. She has gathered a group of professionals from both academia and industry. You see in this slide our core team members leading different branches of activities from all across Ireland. And we have many more members behind the scenes. Our dynamic team of volunteers consists of many more enthusiastic men and women from all different backgrounds, nationalities, and ages. Today, we count more than 5,000 members in over 100 countries. We, as a community-driven organization, organize free and public events, which we call Y Talks, as the one we are in right now, including panels and workshops. Our Y Learn education pathway gives the opportunity to women to learn AI and practice in real life AI application projects with like-minded people. And also we are collaborating with Technology Ireland Skillnet, ICT Skillnet, for Foundation Certificate in Artificial Intelligence with academic recognition from TU Dublin. Almost every month, we launch a number of self-paced project groups. So our groups consist of 3 to 4 people, and they're working with a lead in the project, and they're selecting the project that they want to work on. So they're practicing AI, they learn about team dynamics, and they develop their network. So when the projects are finished, we are organizing public showcases. And through our Be Amazing campaign, we give our members a spotlight by sharing their technical competence and talent on our social media channels. And this way, we give visibility to their career and professional goals, and we bring the community closer. So in essence, Women in AI is a non-profit organization working towards gender-inclusive AI that benefits the global society by increasing female representation and participation in AI. And I must say that we are also very mindful about minorities, and we are keeping our team diverse. And we are the proud winners of the Best Diversity in Analytics Program Award organized by the Analytics Institute. Now, going back to our event, I would like to introduce you to our moderator for this session, Bhuvana Ganesh. She is a fantastic PhD student studying artificial intelligence as part of CRT Center based in University College Cork. And she is also volunteering in Women in AI activities as an events coordinator. So, Bhuvana, please feel free to take the microphone and continue with the rest.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Begum. That was amazing. I'm really proud to be a member of Women in AI, and from us, we extend a really warm and hearty International Women's Day to all of you out there. And thank you so much for joining in today. Now we move on. We have a lot of quality content today, and let's move to the first speaker of the day, Amanda Jolliffe. Amanda Jolliffe is the DreamSpace lead in Microsoft. And after degrees in education and leadership, Amanda was a high school teacher who was working in digital learning. And now her love for teaching has led her to this Microsoft role where she promotes key skills and improves diversity in STEM through the DreamSpace team. Welcome, Amanda. Go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm delighted to join you today. Happy International Women's Day to absolutely everybody joining us and everyone across Ireland and the world. As Bhavana said, my role is to lead DreamSpace in Microsoft Ireland, which is our STEM education venue here in Dublin. I am one member of a fantastic team of people who work very closely with school communities and young people across Ireland. And what we're trying to do is raise awareness of digital technologies, of things like STEM, and absolutely a big kind of target for us is also to increase the opportunities for people from less advantaged backgrounds and to ensure that we do have more diversity in STEM and in things like AI, which we'll discuss today. So really excited to join Women in AI Ireland and Confirm Centre today for this event, and looking forward to getting stuck into some interactive activities very shortly. I'll hand back to Bhavana to let you introduce to our other guest speaker.
Thank you so much for that, Amanda. The work you're doing in DreamSpace is really commendable. Thank you so much for that. Up next, we have Sean O'Brien from Confirm, the Centre for Smart Manufacturing all over Ireland. He is a qualified science teacher and he's been promoting STEM education as well in and around Limerick and for the less privileged. With Confirm, he now works towards public understanding of technological advancements and also to promote female representation in related sectors. Thank you so much, Sean. We need more people like you, and let's hear more about Sean from himself.
Thanks so much, Bhavana. Thanks for the introduction, and hello everybody. Delighted to be here today to talk to you a little bit about some of the myths and public perceptions surrounding AI. So as Bhavana mentioned, I'm the Education and Public Engagement Manager with Confirm Centre. So we're a Science Foundation Ireland funded research centre for smart manufacturing based in Limerick, but we have researchers based at various locations all over the country. So as part of our EP programme, we work with schools and the general public and other stakeholder groups, I suppose, to increase awareness of smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0, but also to work to increase, I suppose, to address the low levels of female representation in the manufacturing space. And in that regard, I suppose we've run a lot of workshops with schools that specifically target female students. We do a lot of careers information workshops with second level students. We run various placements for transition years and undergraduate students as well with Confirm Centre. So thanks again for having me today, Bhavana and Begum, and I'm delighted to present to the audience there later on. So thanks a million.
Thanks a million for the introduction, Sean. Then up next, we have Begum, of course, and you've already heard from Begum, and she'll be presenting in the end, and you'll hear a lot more about her from in terms of AI. So let's move on to our event. I know you're all eagerly waiting for the event. So the first presenter, of course, as you see, is Amanda Jolliffe, and she will be presenting on everyday AI and what exactly is AI. So take the mic, Amanda. All the best.
Perfect. So hopefully we're good to go there. So yeah, I've already introduced myself. So let's just get stuck into it, folks. And we want to try and keep this as interactive and as engaging as possible. So do use that Q&A section to engage with us. But as well as asking us things in the Q&A, we are going to be asking you things in the Q&A too. And I'm going to get straight into that immediately. So the first thing we want to ask everyone who's joined us today, and there's quite a lot of you, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time out to do that. Is just to let us know what you already know. So before we start talking about it and telling you things, we want you to tell us what you already know about artificial intelligence or AI. And it might be like an example of an AI. It might be you actually trying to explain to us what AI is, and like that's no problem at all. So I'm going to just give everybody 1 minute. I know I haven't spoken long, but I'm going to try and keep it that way. I'm going to give everyone 1 minute. I'm going to go back on mute, and I'm going to give you time to just answer that into that Q&A section, and let's just see what people are saying to us. Okay, we're halfway there. We're 30 seconds in. So keep typing and keep those suggestions coming in that we're seeing, those examples of AI or those explanations of what you feel it is. Okay, so very often we have people saying like they are here talking about how it's how machines learn, which is yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Looking at how it can make insights, give insights and decisions. They're flying in here. When I look this way, by the way, I'm very lucky to have another screen where I can keep an eye on things. So I'm not ignoring you out there. Manufacturing things, manufacturing robots. There's one there, one about manufacturing. Sean, you'll be able to jump onto that one later on. Complementing human intelligence. I like that. That's a really interesting way of putting it. Software carrying out simple tasks. So look, as we can see straight away off the bat from the Q&A there, people already have a good understanding of some of the fundamentals. So we're going to go through a little bit more of that fundamentals, look at how it's part of our everyday lives already, and then talk a little bit about the importance of ethics around these things. And that's kind of going to be me in a nutshell, and I'll be passing it back then. But to move on, normally when in DreamSpace we talk to secondary school students all the time, and primary school students, but particularly secondary school students are very interested in this area. And we try and break it down into just like a simple way to explain what actually is AI. And there's different definitions that are out there. But what we normally break it down into is these kind of three blocks. So the first thing we talk about with artificial intelligence is its ability to solve problems. So when we compare it to a human, which is obviously what we would always associate the word intelligence with, we think about how a human is able to think about things and figure things out. So that kind of thinking and solving problems is one thing that we try and give AI programs the ability to do. The second thing that we would talk about quite a lot is its ability to learn. You know, previously, initially when AI was developed, it was very logical. It was that thinking, figuring things out piece. We're now seeing a huge amount of learning being added into AI programs. And that's, if you think about it, extremely human, that ability to learn, to get things wrong, to make mistakes, but then to be able to correct them. And that's exactly what it does. And you know, if you think about one example of machine learning, which we'll talk about in a minute, is kind of this idea that you can learn from your mistake, adjust things and move on as a result. And it's all very human. So that's the final one there. So it's very much mimicking human intelligence, or trying to be as human-like as possible in whatever its role is. Okay, so let's just kind of think about, just for people who might join us that maybe have joined us to learn about it, that who just know AI is artificial intelligence and maybe don't know much more. That's great. So hopefully we're just trying to set the foundations here. So then what we can do is maybe look at the next layer underneath. So what is actually helping this thinking, solving problems, this learning? What's behind that? So we would in DreamSpace break it down into these three elements. So we would say, first of all, it's hugely dependent on data or data, depends how you say it. I say data, some people say data, tomato. But anyway, so data, so basically information. So how much information has the program got? And the key thing about the data would be that obviously it needs to be reliable, and it needs to, you need to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. But really the data is fueling the AI. That's what makes it work. And the data is normally extremely specific for the program it's been built for. Okay, and I'll touch on what I mean by that when we look at some examples in a moment. Alongside this data, you have all these algorithms or these formulas that are basically applying themselves to the data and figuring out. So when we think about that problem solving piece, that's the algorithms doing the work alongside the data. And then finally, as we mentioned, this learning ability, what is that? That's normally called machine learning, or you'd see people say ML. And there's different types of machine learning. So I know Begum later is going to talk about reinforcement learning. And the way we always explain it to in DreamSpace to students is, think about when you're a toddler. Well, you probably don't remember this, but when you're a toddler and you're learning to walk and you fall down and you get back up, your brain actually makes an adjustment for your motor skills to help you learn how to walk, to stay up, to not fall again. So it's tweaking something in your brain. And machine learning in this way of reinforcement learning does something very similar. It tweaks these formulas or these algorithms to work more accurately with the data moving forwards, and ultimately to try and make that AI program much, much better as it goes. Okay, so really what I'm trying to get across here is just bear those three things in mind, because we're going to move now to look at some everyday examples of AI that we use out in our everyday lives. Again, for people who might be new to this. And I want you to bear this kind of formula in mind when you're thinking about those things. So where is the data here? What are the algorithms doing? What's the machine learning doing with this product that we use every day? Okay, so we're going to move into our next activity now. Okay, so what we're going to do is there's going to be 4 descriptions that are going to pop up onto the screen. And these descriptions are of AI technologies. And what we're going to ask you to do now in the Q&A is to basically tell us what you think these AI technologies are based on the descriptions. So for example, you're going to see 4 pop up here. Oh no, my animations have gone wrong. We're going to say 3. Because I don't want to give away the answers. So we have 3 here. Forget about number 3. We'll get to that in a moment. So question 1. So I want you in the Q&A to say question 1 equals, and then to say this can identify or verify a person by comparing and analyzing their facial contours. So I want you in the Q&A to say question 1 equals, and tell me what AI technology you think that is describing. So question 1 equals. Ideally, if you could, folks, in the Q&A, instead of sending in just question 1, if you can do question 1 equals, question 2 equals, we're going to forget about question 3. There's always some sort of technical mishap with me. Or in question 4. So question 1 equals, question 2 equals, question 4 equals. What you think those 3 AI technologies are. If you're not sure, even have a guess. We don't mind, and we're not gonna. We don't mind at all. And I'm going to give you around 2 minutes roughly just to read them. Let us know what you think in the Q&A again. I just want to see how we get on with this, and then we'll go through them and kind of talk about them a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to start my timer again here. I'm going to go on mute, and I'm going to give you time to do that. All right? Great stuff, everyone. We're around a minute in, and we're going to give everyone another minute. We can see people's answers flying in here, so thank you so much. So yeah, 1 equals, 2 equals, and 4 equals. We will reveal 3 in a moment when we get to it, but we'll get you to just do 1, 2, and 4 here. So I'll give you another minute, but thank you so much for that participation so far. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna stop there, but thank you so much. I can, again, as I said, I can see that we've had answers flying in here, and people have different answers, and maybe that's because our descriptions aren't as descriptive as they need to be in some cases. But it was just to get an idea of what people were thinking. So let's just go through what we have here. And again, I can see some people definitely got this one. So question 1: this can identify or verify a person by comparing and analyzing their facial contours. So what we're talking about here is facial recognition. I know some people had kind of vision systems and stuff like that, so really advanced answers. But yeah, literally, we're just talking about facial recognition here on certain things. I'm going to quickly demo that in a moment, so I'm not going to go into that too in depth. So we're going to quickly move on. This will process the language you speak and provide you with an answer. Now, what we're trying to get at here, again, because we do this with students, is just these kind of voice assistants that you would use all the time. I did notice in the Q&A that somebody said natural language processing, which is spot on and exactly what is generally behind these voice assistants. So what that means, if you think about that name, natural language processing, is it's able to try and understand what you're saying in your natural format. So you shouldn't have to speak with these devices in a really robotic way. You should be able to speak naturally and normally, and it should be able to understand you and improve itself to get more accurate as it goes if needs be. Here's 3, which we didn't get to do. My animation's messed up on me. This will conduct an online conversation with a user via text and aims to simulate conversation. And this is often used in customer service. Now, this is a chatbot. I'm actually going to demo that one too in a moment, so it doesn't matter it didn't pop up, because I can talk about that briefly in a moment. And question 4, this will take into account your behavior as a user and then recommend video that it calculates you would like to watch. There's a lot of answers you could have given here. The ones we were looking for there were the likes of YouTube or TikTok or Netflix, and these have algorithms that, if you think back to that formula we talked about earlier, the data plus algorithms plus machine learning, the data in a lot of the instances here is your data. So are you playing a video? Are you sharing it? Or do you complete an episode of a show and move straight on to the next one? Or did you stop after 10 minutes? So it's constantly looking at your behavior and your data, and it's tweaking then its learning and its algorithms as it goes for you as a user. Which can have great, obviously, business benefits for, say, for example, for Netflix, because if you're then enjoying the service because it keeps recommending things you like, then that's great for them, so on. But we're going to move on because I'm conscious of time, and I do want to just quickly demo 2 of these just to kind of, again, just make sure that we're all very clear on how they work, okay? So I'm going to hop out of here for a moment. And I'm going to go into my first quick demo, which is of facial recognition. So I'm on here something called Azure Cognitive Services, which is a Microsoft service. And what you see here are 2 people on the left-hand side of the screen, and then a lot of information on the right-hand side. What's happening is when we upload any photo into this as a demo, it's going to first of all try and identify, is there a face here? And once it identifies that, then it's also going to use its algorithms to try and give us an output of other information, such as age, such as hair color, emotion on the face, and so on and so forth. Now, as it's International Women's Day, I have gone and got a photo of one of my heroes, who is Mary McAleese, the former president of Ireland. And I'm going to open up her photo. Now, this was when she was president. This was back in 97, I think. And I'm just after writing it down here. She was 46 at this time. So just so that we know. Okay, so the first thing you can see is I've uploaded the photo, and straight away it's put a square around her face to identify, yeah, there's a person here. That's the first thing it's able to do. On the right-hand side in this window, we want to look at what other information are these algorithms able to give us. Remember, this kind of service, what it would have been trained on. It would have been trained on data. And this is a service about facial recognition. Therefore, it would have been trained on data of lots of photos of people's faces. So it's basing its judgments on this previous data that it's learned on. Okay. So if I go down, I can see, first of all, it's trying to tell me, and I might actually, hold on now, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Hopefully that'll make it clearer for everybody if you're on a smaller screen. Okay, so we have hair color, and then it says color brown, confidence 0.99. And then it has a list of other colors. So it's checking against this, and it's trying to give the answer it thinks is most accurate. Now you can see here the score for brown is 0.99 and the score for blonde is 0.95. The closer these numbers are to 1.0, the more accurate the AI program feels it is in that instance. So this is obviously the closest to 1.0. So it's picking up mostly brown. However, you could still argue that this is quite close too. And if you look at the photo, you can see she definitely has bits of both. So that's probably why it's picking that up. If we go down, you can see she is gender female, 49. So it's saying she's a little bit older potentially. I'm not sure, maybe she was in that photo, but I picked it up. That was when she first was elected president, which would have been 46. So poor Mary has been given a raw deal there, and she's been aged by 3 years potentially by the AI program, which shows that it isn't always accurate. And if we go down to emotion, you can see here that look, it's saying spot on. That's as accurate as the computer can feel it could be, 1.0 in terms of happiness. Okay, now if I go down here, you can see it says face landmarks, and it's basically picking up on all these coordinates for the person's face. So like if you think about the data it was trained on, it's after learning that there are certain coordinates that are a certain way for example, different age groups. Which is fascinating. So if you're in school and you're doing coordinate geometry, here's coordinate geometry in action, looking at a person's face. Okay, right. So that's that one. And a very quick, because I'm conscious of time, quick one on the chatbot then. So the chatbot, remember, this one in particular was trained on data for health. So it's going to be all working mainly on health. So if I say I have a headache in here, it's going to now pick up on that as a symptom because it's been trained purely on the data for health, and it's going to start now trying to break down further things about me. So it's going to start asking me questions to try and deduce what the issue is or what illness I have, or to send me in the right direction. And these types of bots, these chat bots, these are really, really frequent because they're doing basic questions that humans don't need to do. We can let humans go off and do stuff they're really good at, being creative, solving problems, being innovative, and let these AI technologies do some of the more basic tasks, automation tasks that you can see here. So I can click here, and again, this process will go on. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of an idea over how some of that works. But I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to keep moving, and we're going to go back to our slides here. Okay, cool. So what I want to get across there is the two demos I very quickly showed you are both trained on data, okay, and are both learning from data. And that data is crucial. And if there's issues with the data, if it's unreliable, if it excludes, for example, if we think about facial recognition, if it excluded populations of people, then therefore, obviously, its outputs were going to be completely skewed the wrong way. So we have a responsibility to make sure that data is trained the right way, and that it doesn't have bias as much as possible, exclude as much bias, and make sure the decisions therefore are as accurate as possible. Because this AI could have big effects and a big impact in society. Not only is the data crucial, but the programmers are crucial, which is what, to Begum's point at the start, why we talk about getting more diversity involved. Because the more diverse opinions we have in developing the AI, the better. It means that, again, we all have maybe unconscious biases that we could implement into our programs without even realizing. But if we have more people at the table to discuss that, it might not happen as much. So we all have a responsibility to question things and discuss the ethical nature of these AIs. So with that in mind, I'm going to do, what time are we at here? I think I have another minute or two. So I'm going to just do one or two quick debates about how we need to think about this AI moving forwards. Now, we are going to need your participation in this, if that's okay. So what we're saying here is it's only the beginning, and where could things go? So we're going to try out a couple of statements that we would like you to think about, all right? How it's going to work is we're going to post them in that Q&A area. One of the statements will have the word for, and one of the statements will have the word against. I'm not sure if you noticed in the Q&A, but there's like a little thumb up. So what we're going to get you to do is we're going to get you to vote, right? We want you to weigh in your opinion here. So we're going to get you to hit the little thumb up for or the little thumb up for against, depending on the statement. And we're not only going to ask you to vote, we're going to ask you to tell us why you voted a certain way. Okay, so not just the thumb up, but also give us a reason why you went a certain way. Okay, so the first statement, maybe the only one, I need to double check my time, is the following. So AI should fact check all conversations had over the internet. So we're going to post those two statements into the Q&A. One will say for, one will say against. So the first thing we want you to do is do the thumb up for if you're for or against it. And then we want you to use the commenting area to let us know why you voted that way. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, set my timer. You know the drill at this stage. I'm going to go on mute and we'll see how we go. Okay, still time to let us know what you think, folks, but I'm going to start calling out some answers here because they're absolutely fantastic. And there's actually a bit of a mix. You know, some people are for it, some people are against. And that's why I'm saying about having that diversity of opinion at the table when we're thinking about AI and its future. Because this is the type of conversations that people are having right now about the role of AI. So we need your opinions and we need your thoughts on these things. So a couple of people, some people are saying for, because if it's done right, it could work well, but be careful about what is classified as a fact. A good few people are saying against, and a lot of those people are giving their reasoning as privacy. So privacy issues. Everyone, and someone saying here, everyone is entitled to privacy over the internet. Yeah, someone saying here about how somebody could get all your information in that case. And then some really interesting points here about, but who is doing the fact checking, you know, and that's kind of interesting too. So someone's actually taken back a step and looking at the AI and the person behind the AI, which I think is very interesting. I've never really thought about it that way. So who, like, I just think about the AI doing it, but not the person behind it. So that's a really, really interesting point. Who is checking that? A lot of people here saying about data protection. And then personal privacy. This is coming up a lot. Yeah, so really interesting thoughts there on that one. So thank you so much for engaging in the Q&A on that. There's too many for me to even call out, which is fantastic. Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on. That generated lots of conversation. So let's see, can this one do it too? So the next one is online shops should ship products to us before we even know we need them. Okay, so we're going to put those two statements again. You know the drill at this stage, I'm sure. We want you to vote with the thumb, and then we want you to give your reasoning for those as well. All right, thanks, guys. Timer is back on again for another 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, now I think we've, unlike the last one where we had a couple of different opinions, it appears that this one we've a huge amount against, and I'm really enjoying reading the answers coming in here on this one. So it's talking about it could support impulse buying. I know I understand. It could also it's unnecessary consumption, and I know that's true too. Like really, we should be trying to think carefully. Do we need this stuff? Is there a need for all of this, all of these products in our lives? So yeah, another one. I like this. We gotta be sustainable. So I love that one. Excellent. Really good. Removes the element of choice. Absolutely not. Someone said. It could be subjective and different in other people's eyes. Yeah, also all that wasting kind of transport and shipping things to us. We might not need it. We could be trying to save money. I've seen someone said there. So all really, really valid points. So again, very interesting to hear why you feel so strongly about that. And that's again, very important. Okay, we might just try one more and we'll wrap up on this one, folks. And I'm going to pass back then. So, social media sites should only connect you with like-minded people. Okay, so again, we want you to vote for it or against it and let us know why. And this is it's my final one. I'm going to bow out after this one, but I've really enjoyed seeing the engagement. I'll give everyone another 1 minute and then we're going to wrap that up. And just for the out of interest for time, guys, I'm just thinking here, I'll just read your comments and reply to them, and I might actually hand back to you, Bhavana, just to hand over to Sean to kind of keep us moving because I'm conscious of time.
Sure, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda, for the presentation. That was amazing. So I think a lot of people would have understood better on what AI is and that they encounter AI every day and still don't recognize it. So I hope that a lot of people get introduced to AI in a better way from now. So up next, we have Sean, and moving along very similar lines, Sean's going to be myth busting. He is going to change a lot of the public perceptions of artificial intelligence. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Bhavana. Okay, so I'm just making sure my presentation is up there. That's fine. So yeah, as Bhavana said, I'm going to be focusing today on looking at some of the myths that have surrounded AI over the past number of years, and how the media and popular culture have influenced those myths. Okay, so first of all, excuse me. First of all, I suppose I want to get the audience's opinion on AI. So Amanda spoke a lot about what AI was and things like that, but I'm wondering how people actually feel about AI in general. So there's going to be a link posted into the chat in just a few seconds. There's also a QR code there on screen if you want to scan that with your phones. It's going to bring you to the Mentimeter survey. And when you click on that link, you'll be asked a question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you agree with the following 4 statements? And there'll be 4 statements there. So I'll just invite you all to vote on those statements. And I'll give you about a minute to do that. And I was going to mute myself when that happens. And then we'll go on with the presentation. Okay, so I can see your results coming in there now on the poll, guys. But what I might do is we're going to come back to those results in a second as we go through the presentation when we're looking at the different misconceptions that I'll be speaking about. So for now, we'll just go on with the presentation here. As I mentioned a while ago, I want to look at the influence of the media, I suppose, on public perception of AI. So I just wanted to go through one example of this before we get into the individual misconceptions. So the one I want to speak about is the Facebook AI. So for those of you who haven't heard of this, in 2017, Facebook were testing out an AI, and the purpose of it was to negotiate for these virtual items. So as you can see there on screen, their names were Bob and Alice, by the way. So welcome to Bob and Alice to the presentation for today. So they were negotiating with each other. Remember now, when I say each other, these are chatbots, so they're not actual people. They wanted to win books, hats, or balls off of the other person. So Bob wanted to win them off Alice, Alice wanted to win them off Bob. So basically, the AI was left go to negotiate this with itself, or between Bob and Alice. And what happened was it started to, after a while, you can see there on the screen, it started to kind of use this unintelligible language. And basically, there was a massive media storm around this. Headlines kind of suggesting that we almost lost control of AI and it almost took over the world, when this wasn't actually really the case. So the data from the experiment was released to the public, and the majority of researchers kind of concluded that, yes, it was speaking unintelligible language, but if you look at the language being used here, you'll notice that it says "to me" over and over and over again. So obviously, if I was having a conversation with one of you and I wanted to get something off of you, I'd be like, can you give it to me? Just give it to me, give it to me. So this is basically what was happening with the AI. It just kept using language that would give it a positive outcome. So anyway, what I wanted to get from that little example there was the difference here between facts and myths. So the media there did report on the fact that the AI was shut, that the chatbot was shut down. But it also kind of intertwined these myths around the purpose of it being shut down. So it wasn't because it was evil in any way. It was literally just because the experiment came to a conclusion. So what I'm introducing here is the term misconceptions. So that's what I want to focus on for the presentation today. So the first one is probably one that we've all heard before, that AI will steal jobs from humans, okay? And so looking at your results from the poll earlier on, it's about 50-50. So I think 47% of the people who answered are kind of agree with this statement, okay? So, and interestingly enough as well, there was a poll done in Europe around, as part of Eurostat in 2017, and 72% of Europeans believe that AI or robotics will steal jobs from humans. But is this really the case, okay? So to answer this question, I'm going to look back to a small look back through history. At the 4 industrial revolutions that have taken place. So if we go back to around 1765, this was when the steam engine was introduced into manufacturing, okay? Then in 1870, the electricity-based manufacturing became commonplace. This is things like mass production. You might have heard of the Model T Ford, was one of the first examples of this. Then in 1969, we were looking at the introduction of robotics and computing into the manufacturing process. And then finally today, we're at the 4th industrial revolution, okay? So at each of those stages throughout history, there was fear around this new technology. I know, like, to us, maybe a steam engine doesn't really sound like technology, but back then it was new technology. And there was fears about these technologies either, changing humans' careers or taking jobs away from humans. But yes, maybe it did change people's jobs slightly, but there was always still a need for humans. And I suppose this misconception that AI will steal our jobs is not really correct. So it may change the way humans work, but there will always still be a need for humans, okay? Just to kind of reiterate that fact, with every technological advancement, there is some kind of element of fear and doubt about it, okay? So I have 3 examples here, which are I think they're quite funny anyway. The first of these is the telephone, okay? So this was invented around 1890, and there was a widespread fear about the phone because, now when I talk about a telephone, I'm not talking about a mobile phone here, it's the old wireless house phones, okay? I'm a bit older than some of the people in the audience, I'd imagine, so just to make that clear. So the fear here was that evil spirits could actually travel down the phone lines into your house and kind of possess your body if you were using the phone. So obviously, okay, thank God that myth was kind of taken care of. Second one I want to speak about was trains. So when trains were introduced around at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, there was widespread panic again because people thought, oh my God, these high-speed objects could either asphyxiate passengers, so it caused them to choke because there wouldn't be enough air on board, or there was another fear as well that people could actually lose their heads on trains because of the speed at which they were going. Again, thankfully, this was proven to be false. And finally, the last one is microwaves. So we've all got a microwave in our house, I would imagine most of us do. And the fear surrounding microwaves when they were first introduced was that if you stood next to it while it was on, you could actually get cooked yourself, as opposed to the food inside the microwave, okay? Which, again, thankfully, was not true. So all of these myths have been busted. And while AI is a relatively new technology, we still have to consider the fact that some of the misconceptions surrounding it are caused by this kind of fear of the unknown, really, I suppose. So I suppose while AI will change the way we work, similarly to every other technology before it, there'll still always be a need for humans. Okay. So second misconception, sorry, I've got multiple screens here as well, same as Amanda. I'm just going back to the second one. So the second one I wanted to speak about was AI will quickly overtake and outpace human intelligence. And again, we have the exact same result for this one. So about 47% of you, that was the average kind of response to this. But when we talk about intelligence, I think when we use the word intelligence in common everyday language, we're always referring to like how smart somebody is. From an academic perspective, maybe. But what we need to actually do is consider what is intelligence. So if you look here on screen, there are 9 different types of intelligence that are commonly agreed upon, okay? And they range from things like linguistic intelligence or logic and mathematical intelligence, which AI is actually very good at replicating at the moment. But it also includes things like existential intelligence, which means like your ability to recognize the fact that you exist as a human being. It's a bit deep now for Monday, I understand, but and it also looks at things like naturalistic intelligence, the way that you perceive nature and the way that you interact with nature. Okay. Anyway, so moving on from that a little bit quickly. So if we're looking to compare a human brain to AI as it currently is, it's like comparing apples and oranges. You can't do it. They're completely different, okay? So the human brain is defined by the ability to have conscious thought. So we have things like common sense, we have judgments and opinions about things, we have beliefs, okay? Whereas AI, in its current state, is more looking at simulated reasoning. So it's really, really good at solving a particular problem that it's made to solve. However, it has no opinion, it has no belief, or it has no point of view. So just quickly going back to Amanda's example earlier on of the facial recognition, the AI was able to tell you loads of things about Mary Matthews' hair, for example. It gave the result brown. But the AI has no opinion about brown hair. It doesn't prefer brown hair over blonde hair, for example. It doesn't, like, we might have a favorite color. My favorite color is purple, for example, which I'm wearing today. But the AI does not have a favorite color. It can recognize these things, but it doesn't have any judgment, opinion, or belief about it. Okay. Finally, then, the third misconception I want to speak about, and probably my favorite, because I'm a massive fan of sci-fi movies. So the third one is AI will become the dominant life form and wipe out humans. Okay, so hopefully this is never going to happen. And thankfully, most of you agree with that from the poll that this will never happen, okay? But oh yeah, sorry, I wanted to get your opinion on one question here. So if I could invite you to go back to the Menti meter, I'm just going to change to the next question. So you should have a new question appear on screen there when you click back into the link. And again, I'm just going to put myself on mute and I'll just give you a minute to answer that poll, please. Okay, so just in the interest of time, I might keep on going there. So there's loads of results after coming in so far. So the question here that I was asking was, in the majority of movies or TV shows that I've seen involving robots or AI, it has been portrayed as not as good, so not trying to destroy humanity, basically, bad, trying to destroy humanity at all costs, and then finally an option to say you're not sure. So the vast majority of people who voted so far indicated that in most of the TV shows or movies they've seen, AI has been portrayed as being negative. Okay. Oops, sorry, let's switch screens here again. But I suppose my question is the AI or robot itself actually evil? So can an AI be inherently evil? Okay. And I'm going to use 3 movies, and they're again, similarly to my telephone example, they're quite old movies, so my apologies if you haven't heard of them. This is for the younger people in the audience. So I just want to talk about the three main scenarios that kind of are featured in these movies. So scenario 1, so AI is created to carry out some evil task. All right. So the example I want to give here is from a film called Metropolis. Now this is an ancient film, so I would imagine that I think it's from 1927. But in this movie, this robot here, Maria was her name, was created to actually be an evil robot. All right. So in this case, she was very good at it. She was a very evil robot, but the AI itself wasn't actually evil. So the AI was programmed and made to be that way. But the AI, again, going back to what I said about human brains versus artificial intelligence, it wasn't conscious of the fact that it was being evil. It was just carrying out its programming, and it was doing so very, very well, actually. Second scenario I want to talk about is a more recent film, I suppose. It's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So in this movie, the scenario I'm talking about here is the AI follows its programming, but it does so in a way that we perceive as being negative or being destructive. So in this movie, HAL 9000 was the name of the AI on board this spacecraft, and HAL's programming dictated that it was supposed to carry out the mission of the spacecraft no matter what. So its key objective was to finish the mission that they were sent into space to do. So HAL started malfunctioning at a certain time throughout the mission, and the people on board tried to shut it down because they were afraid, obviously, that it was malfunctioning. It wasn't performing its task correctly. But HAL saw this as a threat to the mission. So to overcome this, he actually started killing off the crew. Okay, not a great thing to happen, but that's what he decided to do. Now, in this case, HAL was programmed to carry out the mission no matter what. So he was only following his programming. And I suppose we perceive it as being evil, but I don't know. It was just doing what it was told, basically. And finally, then, a very common one, most of you probably have heard of this before, is Terminator. So here the AI becomes self-aware and revolts against humans. So Skynet, which was the AI in Terminator, perceives, again, the humans tried to shut it down. It perceived this as a threat to itself. So then it revolted back against humans, similarly enough to what HAL was doing in Space Odyssey. So just before I finish up, I suppose what I was trying to get at in this presentation was the media and movies have really shaped the way the public perceive AI. And when I say the public, I mean people who might not have a background or expertise in AI. So I just think it's really important that we consider the facts and the myths and the difference between them. So the misconceptions that exist between them. So I'll leave you the question here. So what does the future hold with AI? We don't know, but I think it's important through events like this to create a discussion and dialogue around AI for everybody. So thanks very much. I'm going to hand you back to Bhavana now. Thanks, Bhavana.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Sean. I'm sure that a lot of people, you have busted a lot of myths, and it's the fear of unknown that's keeping people from believing that AI can be a lot more good than it is perceived to be. So thank you so much for that, Sean. So up next, we have Begum Genç from Women in AI. She will be presenting on what you would like to see next. Does AI actually know what you want? So go ahead, Begum.
Thank you very much, Bhavana. I am trying to share my content now. Yes, I think I'm all live. So thank you, Amanda and Sean, for your amazing presentations. It was all amazing. So what I'm going to try to do now is to focus a little bit more on the technical side. So I will talk about the concepts, some key concepts, and I will talk about some recommender-based AI systems. And also I want to identify a few female leaders that are working in the related concepts. So now let's see. As everybody has mentioned so far, as mentioned before, AI is not at all a new thing. So researchers have been working on different AI concepts for years, since around 1950s. And as the technology got more advanced, the data has become more important. So now we have huge data. We have a lot of data in our computers that we can store, and we can just look at the data and we can really extract some really useful information. So AI has mostly shifted into a highly data-based field. So also with the advancement of the programming languages and tools, now people from different backgrounds, from different fields, such as the doctors, for instance, they can now also look at their data and they can extract some information from it. And if we give an overview of all different branches of AI, we may end up with such a representation. So as mentioned before, you can see machine learning here. So this is one of the key components here of AI systems nowadays. Or there are the other ones like speech recognition, robotics, translation of text from one language into another, or computer vision like face detection kind of things. They're all different components of AI. And then there's also the planning, scheduling, and optimization area. And actually, this is the area that I am working on. So I want to give a kind of a spotlight into this. I want to give you an example about this one. So in this category, people usually develop AI techniques to solve complex problems like puzzles or like other problems that would normally require a human being to solve to produce a solution for in months or weeks, and sometimes even years, they wouldn't be able to produce a solution to those problems. So now I want to show you a really nice example that combines artificial intelligence, computer vision, and below also problem solving. So as you might already know him, he is George Boole, who was a mathematician who worked in University College Cork. He has helped establishing the symbolic logic, which is called as Boolean algebra, Boolean variables. Some of you might have heard about these types of things. So he is the main person behind all that idea. So we are nowadays using these, using its concepts for reasoning and designing computer circuits. So in this problem, the problem is called the Domino Portrait. What happens is that you're given an image. So in this case, as you see in the A part, you're given an image of George Boole. And now you're also given a set of dominoes. And now you're asked to recreate George Boole's image from by using only the pieces from that set of dominoes. So when you look at here, if you use only one set of dominoes, this is the best image that you can create that is closer to George Boole's picture. And then if you use 4 sets of dominoes, you now start to get a little bit of more of the face features. Like now you can identify the eyes and the mouth a little bit. And if you use even more pieces, like 16 sets of dominoes, then it's more clear. And in the case of 49 sets, for instance, which means nearly 2,700 dominoes, then you can create a pretty good image of George Boole or whoever's picture that is, or whatever picture that is. A much clearer concept. By using our computers, we are able to create this in milliseconds, which is like much less than a second. But if a human were to do this task, if they can do it, well, probably they will be able to do it in a month or a couple of months, or maybe in a couple of years, only if they can solve this problem. So this is the closer that they can get to the image. And now, looking at AI from another perspective, a recent report in 2018 is saying that only 22% of the AI professionals on LinkedIn were women. So looking at another statistics, a 2018 research states that only 12% of the leading machine learning researchers are women. And well, we need to change this. And this is one of the main goals of Women in AI. It is to attract more women into the field And when the women are in the field, then we want to support them through their journey so that they don't drop out. Now, I want to do something interactive, as Amanda and Sean has also done. So I want to talk about I want to talk about some very popular AI platforms that I will cover in the next few slides. So I want to know how many of you are familiar with these platforms. So I've seen in the chat already, some of you are familiar with things like TikTok, YouTube, and Amazon. We covered these. But now please go in chat. And if you are a user to any of these technologies, or if you are familiar with them, just type the numbers associated with them so that I can have an understanding of the ones that they're using. Please go ahead, and I will be waiting your answers in the meanwhile. Okay, so the answers are coming in, and I see that many people are familiar with Netflix, Spotify, and especially YouTube as well. So I see many. It's amazing. So I want to highlight that the most common thing in between all these platforms is that they all recommend you something. So for instance, when you look at the Netflix case, it is recommending you some movies, Spotify recommending you some songs, TikTok and YouTube, some videos to watch, Instagram, videos or photos, Amazon, some products for you to buy. So these are all recommended items. And now I want to talk about an example that I have recently seen on Twitter, right? So this example that I'm going to mention, it has no scientific facts. It is just food for brain. So I will tie this back to Amanda's talk and Sean's talk about bias and ethics and all that. So as I have mentioned a while ago, TikTok is a video-based platform that recommends you which video to watch next. So this user, Mark Fadul on Twitter, he sets up a fresh account on TikTok. And he follows a random profile, completely random profile, and he has no data in the system whatsoever. And then he observes the next 3 profile recommendations that he gets. And interestingly, what he observes is that TikTok only recommends him accounts whose profile pictures look almost identical to the first account that he has followed. So even in some cases, you can see that the profile picture in this case, for instance, it's not really an image of human, but it's still, it's a drawing, but the similarity is still there. So then he questions, is this a result of appearance-based human bias? So is this a feature of a system, or is this a bug? So we talked about algorithmic bias and data bias. So your data may be biased, but also whoever is developing this system, that person could be biased as well. So this is something to keep in mind. So now I want to ask you a question about this. Please go to chat and again, use your thumbs up if you think that it is better to be connected to people that look similar to who you are following based on the image. So when you're on Instagram, for instance, would you prefer to be recommended people who look alike to the people that you follow? Or the similar thing for TikTok in this case, for instance? Or would you prefer the content? Is content more important in your case? So please go to Q&A section and give me some of your choices. I'd like to see what you think. Okay, so I see the answers are coming in, and most of you are talking about content. So I think this is a very good point, and no one is really interested in the similar appearance stuff. But unfortunately, it may be the case sometimes. So this type of questions are often addressed by the ethics researchers. they try to understand how AI technologies can impact human beings. They question about how to make AI to do the right thing morally. And designers, the developers who have AI ethics in mind when designing a program, they often ask themselves, should I do this? Should I code this? Instead of, can I code this? Because these are completely two different questions. So in one of them, you are keeping in mind the impact on the society. And so as we have seen so far, recommendations may not always be accurate. Sometimes we are just looking at the image and recommending the similar images. And sometimes we need more information about what we are recommending. So for instance, in the context of Netflix, you're recommended which movie to be watched to watch next. And there are very important features for a movie, such as the genre of the movie, the year of the movie, or the content of the movie. So when an AI-based system is making recommendations, the more information it has about the products, better recommendations it can give to the user. And well, all this information cannot always be understood by the cover of the movie. Or in the other case, for instance, there can be other factors affecting the quality of a recommendation. So for instance, if the system does not have enough information on you, we call this as the cold start problem. So the system doesn't really know you yet. It doesn't know your preferences or what you like or anything like that. Or in another case, you might have created a super complicated profile. Maybe you're sharing your Spotify account with your granddaughter and your son and your husband or wife or someone else. So a couple of people watching or using the same account at the same time. So what they try to do is to categorize those different tastes into different groups. So for instance, maybe Spotify is suggesting me Daily Mix 1, maybe this is my taste, and maybe when I'm working, Spotify is recommending me to listen the more calm playlist. So these are all different tastes and categorized into different things. So these types of things, this sub-profile creation can create a little bit confusion if all the products are to be represented to you on the same page. So there's diversity, but there is sometimes too much diversity. And this type of research is addressed by the people in recommender systems. So they try to improve the recommendation quality of these platforms like Amazon, Netflix, or Spotify. And the researchers observe the user behavior, so which content do you interact most, and they learn from it, and they try to figure out the best recommendation for you for the next one, for each specific user, and also the way that the information is presented so that you will feel more engaged about the content. And now the question is, in general, we talked a lot about learning, and what are those different learning concepts? So there are different techniques: the supervised learning, unsupervised learning, or something in between, semi-supervised learning. And there's also reinforcement learning. And I want to demonstrate you how reinforcement learning is working a little bit, because I think there's a really nice demo for this one. So as we talked, reinforcement learning is like teaching a toddler how to walk. So it's learning by trial and error. If you do something good, if you take an action that takes you to your goal, then you're positively rewarded. Like you get a reward. But then if you do something that's taking you further away from your goal, then you are getting penalized. So you get some negative feedback from your actions. And now here is a really nice demo. So this demo is created by OpenAI. They wanted to test if they can create this setting of the hide and seek game. And probably most of you know the hide and seek game, but I will just briefly talk about it. There are 2 hiders and 2 seekers in the game. And the goal is that hiders don't want to be seen by the seekers, and the seekers are going to win the game if they see the hiders or if they catch the hiders. So the OpenAI is coding it, and they're saying that you can move, you can jump, I don't know, like all those different actions that you can use. And then they initiate the experiment. At the beginning of the experiment, they observe that all the agents are just randomly moving around. And then, but as time goes on, they learn that when they're moving on, especially the seekers, for instance, when the seekers, if they go closer to the hiders and if they see them, then they are getting positively rewarded. They get a reward. So they learn this action and then they start chasing the hiders. And then hiders try to run away from the seekers, obviously. And then the hiders realize that, oh, look, we are not supposed to be seen. And they're coming through the doors. So they learn how to use the objects in the environment. So they discover the boxes. They go, hold the boxes, and they try to block the doors so that the seekers cannot catch them. And it's not ending here. Now the seekers are getting more intelligent. Now they're realizing that they're actually getting penalized for this action, for this learning action. And then they realize that there's another object in the scene, which is a ramp that they can use, and they can use to just climb over the wall, and they can still reach the hiders. So then when they do it, they can reach the hiders. And then it's getting even more interesting from this moment on. The hiders are now realizing that, oh, look, ramp is the main threat here. So we need to do something to get rid of the ramp. And there's a small delay at the beginning of the game, as you may see. So the seekers are paused for a while so that the hiders are, the counting step. So the hiders are finding a strategy out. So in this small time, the hiders are going first for the ramp. They are catching it and they are hiding it in the room. So this is all learning because they get a positive reward from this action. And then they hide the ramp. And after this, they are getting even more and more intelligent. So even if you put that delay small, if you reduce the delay at the beginning of the game, now they realize that they need to be even faster. So they first go for the ramp. They put the ramp in the room, and then they're even coordinating and passing the boxes to each other because it makes them faster. So this is how reinforcement learning works in general. And reinforcement learning is mainly used in robotics. And it's in order to help the robots to perform their tasks better by time. And it has many more use cases in the AI field. So with this presentation, I aim to give you an idea about how recommendations in AI platforms work and that we have some brilliant women that are leading this type of all different branches of research. So I hope you enjoyed the slides. Thank you very much, and I'm giving the microphone back to Bhuvana.
Thank you so much for that, Begum. That was a really interesting presentation, especially the bit about the hide and seek, where we realized that this is how methodically AI learns. So thank you all so much for joining in. We have time for a couple of Q&As. If you're interested, please post in the Q&A section. Before that, we have a survey link that we would like to post. Please do answer. In the meanwhile, thank you so much for all of our speakers for joining in today. It's been an amazing session. It's been very helpful for all sorts of audiences, from I think school children to anybody in another field. It's a very good introduction to the AI and should be changed, and also about the representation of women in this field and how less we have and how much more we should improve. So thank you all so much for joining in. Do we have questions? Please post them in the Q&A section.
I think there's one there, Bhavana, about how to learn AI, and maybe I don't know if Begum would be as a researcher and lecturer would be maybe best placed.
Yeah, so I think I can answer that question. So in order to learn AI, so there, as we mentioned, there are so many different components of AI. So the first question is, which part of the AI would you like to be looking at? So some of this is really heavily relying on mathematics concepts, as in like statistics and maths. So maybe this could be the way to go for you if you want to learn how exactly those systems work. and you want to design the AI system from scratch, maybe computer science or mathematics and statistics would be the best way to go for you, and you would just learn it. But if you just want to apply an AI method into your data, as in the example that I've given you, so if you are, for instance, a doctor, and if you want to learn about your data and the insights from it, maybe all you need to do is to just go and take a few online courses or certificates, and then you will have an understanding of how these systems work. So as I mentioned again, women in AI as well as many other communities in Ireland or many other organizations in Ireland are offering certificate courses. So I really suggest I strongly suggest you to take a look at the certificate programs. And if you just want to learn it deep, then go to the college first, and then maybe attend to a research class after, like a master's class or a PhD class. That would be really good.
And I think there's one maybe for Sean. I don't know if Sean I might be throwing Sean in the deep end here, but there's one about manufacturing, Sean. Are there certain countries, for example, that have really focused more on manufacturing? So using AI for manufacturing. I don't know if you know that off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't be 100% sure of like which countries we're focusing on it more. I know like from our own research area, obviously like the whole concept of Industry 4.0 was kind of coined in Germany, so I know there's been a lot going on there. But across any manufacturing related research centre in Ireland that I know of anyway, there is obviously a massive focus on AI in manufacturing there. So I know that didn't exactly answer the question that was asked, but that's the best I can do off the top of my head, so apologies.
And there's one there about different ways to learn the computer science or the Python and stuff. So I'll put a shameless plug in for our DreamSpace resources there. So for secondary school students who want introductory level, I suppose, access into this type of thing, we do have a series called DreamSpace TV that we developed. And it's for secondary school students. The first 2 episodes introduce coding and visual programming. Then we go into Python, and we also discuss AI, artificial intelligence, and AI for good across that as well. And we will post in the links to those things into the chat window. I'm not sure if there's any other ones there. I don't know if anyone wants to shout.
Yeah.
Devan, I don't know if you see any more there.
Yeah, there is a question about research proposals for a PhD in AI. Would Begum like to take that?
Yeah, that could be an interesting question. So when you're applying for a PhD position or a master's position, the best thing to do first is to look at a university and people in the university, within the university, and just check their profiles and see what they're working on. And once you have found the place that you really want to apply, like the professor that you really want to work with, or the lab, as in like in Ireland, for instance, we have different centers that are working on AI: CRT Center, Insight Center, Confirm Center, Adapt, and like many different centers. So you need to go and check the people that are working there, and based on what you want to write, what you want to work on, and based on what they do, try to find an intersection in between, and then tell them what you want to study or what you're interested in. So this is the best way to go for you to find a research position at the college.
That summarizes the search for a PhD very well. So any more questions?
So there are usually questions about learning about AI, like where to start to learn. And I think the best way to go for this, if you're just a non-expert or if you just want to learn the basics, go online and check online courses. Many different organizations are offering those different courses and certificates, and that's best. And I see that there is a question that's coming for Amanda, right, Bhavana?
Yeah, there is a question for Amanda about the Microsoft Health bot. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, that's perfect. What we'll do is we'll post into the announcement area there now the links to the various things I I was showing. For the help bot, just click on the link, and then you just need to click on try an end user experience and see how it is really interesting. I know I flew through it earlier like so fast. So yeah, go through it and see what you think. And we often use it with students, and we ask the students to discuss how you could improve it as well, which is really interesting, and for any teachers on, to allow them to go and do it, and then actually look at, right, this is AI, but how could it be improved upon? How could it learn better? What data could improve it? Coming back to that formula. So that's well worth a look. And we'll post the link to the face demo as well, and other links that might be of interest. No worries.
Another question very relevant to you and Sean. How can I integrate AI in education?
Yeah, I can take the start and then throw it to Sean. So AI, I suppose, is if we think back to what I was talking about, let's say with the chatbot, when I was saying this is a very automated process that's relieving pressure on people having to do these kind of monotonous yes, no tasks, what's your age, and if we can get a machine to do that, can we not let humans then go on and use higher order thinking and do other things? And that's kind of the thinking there. So I think from an education point of view, school leaders, teachers, like there's a huge amount of administration potentially that could be eased with AI, because it could do some of that automated stuff, and then also for education, it could provide some great insights into like how effective schools are, into the learning outcomes, into how students are getting on, and stuff like that. So that will be my initial off the bat thinking on it. But I'll throw to Sean if he wants to add any more there about its use in education.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I suppose when I read that question, I read it slightly differently. I was thinking about how a teacher, for example, could integrate AI into their lessons, as in teaching the kids about AI. So I'm not sure what the person actually meant.
Well, perfect. You go with that one.
Just from that way. Of course, I read it differently. But so what I was thinking, what we tend to do a lot is, I suppose we'd work with a lot of primary schools in particularly, and maybe early stage and second level pupils. And I think trying to integrate lessons like that focus on the technical aspects of AI can be quite difficult, because from our point of view, we'd only have one-off interactions with class groups. But from a teacher's perspective, I think it's really useful to focus or to bring the focus to the societal impacts piece. It can kind of link the kind of STEM learning to the actual societal impact of the technology, which is something that we've been doing a lot in our EP program with Confirm. So I think, yeah, that's a good way of kind of getting the discussion going about AI and the thought process going about how AI will impact our future and things like that.
That is a very comprehensive answer. Yeah.
Sorry, Amanda. No, actually, Sean, that probably is the right way someone meant it. And I think from a second level point of view, then I know we're doing workshops before, and with yourself, Sean, and we worked with teachers, and like AI, like if you think back to even what we discussed there about things like Netflix, and like from a business model point of view, their business model is fully dependent on AI. So you could talk about AI in your business studies lessons, from an environmental point of view, in terms of how data is being used in areas like sustainability and climate change. You could have it in geography and science. So there is lots of subjects where actually you could just talk about AI in a lesson and give the students the awareness. But happy if you want to connect with us, I'm sure Sean and myself, we could talk to you more about some practical examples of integrating that, because I think that's a really good point as well. Thanks, Bhavana. I'll hand back to you because I think you want to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. All of the answers were great. And thank you all so much for coming in today, both the presenters and the audience. And happy International Women's Day to all of you. I hope that you all had something to munch over from today's talks. So we have posted links of all the speakers in the chat. You can talk to them, contact them with your questions if you have any more. And we have a link for the Women in AI LinkedIn page as well. So if you want to learn more about us and the programs that we are doing right now, definitely feel free to drop us a message in LinkedIn or in any other social media platform. Thank you all so much for joining today. And that's it from us. Have a really lovely week.